I woke up at 5:47 in the morning to a sound that did not belong to God, nature, or anything decent, a Peterbilt semi screaming in reverse, diesel smoke rolling through my window, then one hard, impossible crash that shook my whole house like judgment had finally found my address. A second later, my grandfather's barn exploded. Not figuratively. Not in some dramatic storyteller way. I mean, wood burst apart like rifle cracks, beams snapped, old cedar flew through the dark, and before my boots even hit the floor, I could feel the impact in my teeth. I ran outside, half-dressed, heart hammering the cold air, cutting my lungs, and there she was across the yard in a pink bathrobe and bunny slippers, arms folded, smiling through the dust like she'd just watched a magic trick she paid extra for. Vivian Marsh, president of the Ridgeview Estates, HOA. She looked me dead in the eye and yelled, "Your farm's illegal to exist here anyway. Consider this a favor." Now, where I come from, mornings like that don't end quietly. My name is Delmont Briggs Dell, if you've earned it. I'm a third-generation farmer in Harlan County, Tennessee, the kind of country where the ridgelines turn purple at dusk and October smells like wet limestone, wood smoke, and cut hay. My grandfather Amos carved our place out of rocky ridge land back in the late 40s. My father kept it alive long enough to hand it to me debt-free. 40 acres, a cedar barn, built in 1962, a pond, 2 hayfields, a produce stand my mother painted white every spring, and about 30 black Angus cattle that neighborhood kids keep naming without asking me. I never had some grand childhood dream of becoming a farmer. I just never found a reason to leave, and those are not the same thing. One sounds romantic, the other sounds like truth. The trouble started when a developer bought the land east of my fence and dropped a subdivision onto it like a plastic lunch tray, 42 houses, vinyl siding, 2-car garages, a brick entrance sign trying real hard to look expensive. They called it Ridgeview Estates and slapped an HOA on top of it, dues, bylaws committees, the whole little empire of people with too much time and not enough perspective. My land was next to theirs, not inside it. That mattered. My farm had been there 60 years before the first nail went into their first model home. I wasn't a member, never paid dues, never sat in their community room under fluorescent lights while grown adults argued about mailbox paint. For a while, that was enough. Then Vivian moved into the corner lot nearest my eastern fence line. She was a retired HR manager from Knoxville, twice divorced, always pressed, always perfumed, the kind of woman who could bring a clipboard to a barbecue and somehow leave with 3 complaints filed and a volunteer committee formed. 6 months after moving in, she got herself elected HOA president. My neighbor Bertram, retired civics teacher, buys eggs from me twice a week, wears indignation like a necktie. Told me over the fence one morning, "That new woman on the corner asked a lot of questions about your farm at the first meeting. I should have paid attention." 3 months later, I got a certified letter on gold-sealed HOA stationery accusing me of agricultural odor, nuisance, visual blight, and unsanctioned commercial activity because of my roadside produce stand. I stood in my kitchen reading it while the cattle made that low rolling sound they make at daybreak. Dew still on the grass, air tasting like iron and hay. And I made the mistake a lot of decent people make the first time somebody weaponizes nonsense against them. I assumed being right would be enough. It never is, not when the real issue isn't the law or smell or fences or paperwork. Not when the real issue is that somebody looked at your life and decided your very existence irritated them. For the next year and change, Vivian turned bureaucracy into a hobby. Anonymous county complaints started showing up every few weeks. Setback violations, drainage problems, unpermitted electrical work, structural concerns, one after another. Every complaint triggered an inspection because that's how the system works. File enough nonsense and eventually truth has to burn gas money defending itself. 12 inspections in 10 months, 0 violations. By the 7th visit, Howard Cobb County Chief Inspector, 23 years on the job, lean as a fence post and twice as hard to impress, pulled me aside near my equipment shed and said, "Son, whoever's filing these is spending more on postage than your farm is worth in citations." That almost made me laugh. What it actually did was force me to get organized. Every permit, every registration, every old paper that had been living in boxes and drawers came out. One folder became 2 binders, then more. My office smelled like coffee and printer toner for months. I also brought in Patricia Swell from the County Agricultural Extension Office, sharp, practical, no-nonsense, drove a truck older than some marriages, and had her do a formal land use assessment. She walked every acre, checked every structure, filed a certified report confirming what anybody with working eyes already knew. Briggs Farm was legitimate, active, legal, and older than the subdivision by 6 decades. Vivian didn't quit. She escalated. She rallied the subdivision into what she called a beautification initiative, which mostly meant photographing my fence line like they were documenting war crimes, then carrying their little bundle of aesthetic grievances to a county commissioner meeting. 17 of them showed up. Most left early. The commission chair listened 8 minutes, then reminded them Tennessee's right to farm protections existed for exactly this kind of suburban invasion by complaint. That should have ended it. Instead, Vivian started whispering. At cookouts in driveways near the mailbox clusters, I became hostile, uncooperative, unstable. Apparently, I'd even threatened Bertram, which was especially interesting since Bertram called me himself to say, with wounded teacherly dignity, I said no such thing, and I told her statement was defamatory. That was when I started the notebook. The binders were for official records. The notebook was for patterns, dates, names, comments, weird little moments that looked harmless by themselves but started to feel dangerous when stacked together. Lawyers love patterns. I didn't know it yet, but mine was about to need one. Vivian's first real move came when she dug up an old lien from 1987, not unpaid, just misindexed, after my father paid it off in 1991 and the county records got digitized badly. On paper, if you were dishonest enough, it looked unresolved. She found an ambitious young attorney willing to file a clout-on-title action over it. That one hit me where the others hadn't. I'd been working on a 3-year supply deal with a regional agricultural co-op, the kind of contract that makes cattle farming feel less like weather-dependent roulette. The second their legal team saw active title litigation, they froze negotiations. Vivian hadn't won a thing, but she'd cost me real money. So I called my cousin, Adeline Tanner, in Chattanooga, property attorney, smarter than I'll ever be, mean in the precise, useful way only good lawyers can be. She read the filing, went silent a second, then said, "Dell, this is the dumbest thing I've read since the bar exam. But dumb can still be expensive." We spread my binders across her dining room table and built a response. Title search proved the lien had been satisfied. She moved to correct the record, then filed a counterclaim for fees. She also filed a complaint against Vivian's attorney for failing to do even basic due diligence before clouding title on paid-off land. That lawyer bailed fast. The case collapsed in 45 days. The co-op deal came back. I signed it. I paid Adeline half in beef. That should have taught Vivian something. Instead, she got creative. For years, subdivision folks had been using the gravel road along my eastern fence as a shortcut to the county road. I'd never cared. They were mostly polite, and I figured neighborliness cost less than conflict. Vivian tried to turn that into a prescriptive easement, argued their open use gave the HOA a legal right to formalize the road, which would leave me on the hook for grading, drainage, maybe paving. That one scared me more than the title case. Not because she was right, but because it was grounded enough to require real work. Adeline's fix was elegant. We posted a sign stating road use was by my permission only and could be revoked at any time, then sent certified letters to all 42 households saying the same thing. Permission kills adverse use. Just like that, the easement theory died on the table. And that was when the twist showed up. While helping me with a conservation easement application through USDA, a permanent protection that would keep the farm agricultural forever, Adeline dug through old annexation records and found a buried clause from 2003, page 18 of some late-night county document nobody had read carefully. Section 7C. It said parcels in the annexation corridor could be subject to the subdivision's stormwater standards, including existing non-residential parcels. My farm, when Adeline cross-referenced Vivian's first complaints, the exact language from that clause had been sitting there from day one. That woman had not been improvising. The inspections, the whispers, the title action, the easement stunt, it was all a campaign to build a record to paint me as a stubborn, non-compliant landowner before finally using Section 7C in court. She'd been playing a long game the entire time, but she made one mistake. She never read the second half of the clause carefully enough. It only applied with my written consent or by court order after a finding of actual drainage impact. I had never consented, and no drainage issue existed. Better still, my USDA application required a certified hydrology survey proving my water drained away from the subdivision entirely. So we stopped reacting and started building the trap. Adeline brought in a paralegal named Sherry Voss, who organized every letter, inspection, complaint note, and filing into a thick exhibit package that looked less like paperwork and more like a loaded rifle laid across a courtroom table. Patricia helped push the federal easement application through. Chip Wakefield from the Tennessee Farm Bureau got involved and immediately sounded like a man born specifically to hate HOA overreach. Bertram quietly kept notes from HOA meetings. Even Howard Cobb started paying a different kind of attention. Then Vivian ran out of patience. She'd spent months claiming my barn was unsafe. County inspectors disagreed twice, so she found her second cousin, Dwayne Pitt, who ran a demolition company 40 miles away, and got him to write a letter saying the barn was structurally compromised. The county building department rejected it. The findings didn't match reality. So at 5:47 on a freezing Tuesday morning, she stopped asking for authority and sent a truck. The Peterbilt punched through the south wall of my grandfather's barn, tore up frozen ground, cracked 2 main uprights, then backed out and ran. When I got outside and saw the hole saw the sky through boards Amos Briggs had raised by hand in 1962, I didn't feel rage the way I expected. I felt clarity. I called Adeline, the sheriff, Chip, and Howard Cobb. Then I took photos until sunrise. Turns out hiding a truck badly is not a strong legal defense. Deputies found Dwayne eating breakfast at his yard 17 miles away with peel-off company decals half removed from the doors. By 8:30, there were county vehicles in my driveway. Howard photographing the damage with the expression of a man who had finally run out of professional patience, and somewhere down the road, deputies knocking on Vivian's front door while she answered in that same bathrobe. Once it became criminal, the whole thing changed shape. Vivian tried to spin it to the HOA board as a misunderstood safety assessment. Hartwell, quiet accountant, rarely opposed her in public. Before then set his phone on the table, hit record, and said, "I want the minutes to reflect that I never authorized heavy equipment on private property." The other board members backed him immediately. She tried offering a settlement. Adeline said no before I finished describing it. She tried anonymous Facebook smears. Bertram dismantled them so thoroughly, people asked if he'd gone to law school. She tried petitioning the county to stop my federal conservation easement over unresolved covenant disputes. That got tabled without a vote. Then, in what may still be my favorite detail in this whole sorry opera, she tried leaning on Howard Cobb through his brother-in-law with a landscaping contract, hoping Howard might reconsider his inspection findings. Howard called the ethics office before the day was over. A local TV reporter named Sandra Cho got interested. Once Sandra read the full exhibit package, the story stopped belonging to Vivian. And that is how we all ended up at Harlan County Agricultural Heritage Day. Usually that event is tractors, livestock, fried food, and maybe 40 stubborn citizens listening to watershed updates. That year, the main hall was packed. 6, maybe 700 people. Smell of hay, diesel, machine oil dust baked into the rafters from 30 years of county fairs. Patricia presented first, explaining that my 40 acres had just become the county's first approved, federally protected agricultural conservation easement. Permanent. Recorded. Untouchable by HOA fantasy. I stood beside her and said only 3 sentences. My grandfather built this farm. My father kept it going. I intend to do the same. Then Sandra got the floor. No drama, no raised voice, just facts laid out flat and clean. The inspection parade, 0 violations. The clout on title over a paid-off lien. The easement stunt, Section 7C. The fake condemnation letter from Vivian's cousin. The truck. The ethics complaint. Then Chip stood up and announced the Farm Bureau was asking for an audit into whether HOA dues had funded Vivian's private war against my farm. That was the moment she stood up to object. And that was the moment Hartwell stood too. In front of that whole room, in that calm Sunday school voice of his, he moved to suspend any HOA response pending the ethics investigation. The board members with him raised their hands right there in public. Motion carried. Vivian sat back down while 700 people watched the walls close in around her. That was the real ending, not loud, not cinematic in the Hollywood sense, just final, like a gate latching shut. The criminal case against Dwayne ended in restitution and probation. He paid for every repair to the barn. A local timber framer restored the south wall so well you can't tell new cedar from old. Vivian never got criminally charged. She'd been careful about what she said out loud, but the county ethics findings were ugly enough. She'd used $14,000 of HOA dues on legal attacks against my farm without board approval. She got forced to repay it and barred from HOA office for 5 years. She resigned that same afternoon. Her house went on the market in July. By August, she was gone. The farm stayed. That's the part that matters most. The barn still smells like cedar and old oil when the afternoon heat settles in. The cattle still drift across the pasture like they own time itself. The pond my grandfather dug still catches evening light. And that federal easement runs with the deed forever. No subdivision, no board president, no tired county meeting at 11:47 p.m. gets to erase us now. Somewhere in the middle of all this, I learned something I wish I didn't know. This well-greed rarely shows up looking evil. Most of the time it arrives dressed as procedure improvement compliance concern. It carries a clipboard. It uses polite words. It tells you it's being reasonable while it tests whether you're too tired to defend what's yours. And sometimes the only thing that stops it is patience paper. And the kind of backbone that doesn't feel dramatic while you're using it. I used part of that conservation money to start a scholarship in my grandfather's name for local kids going into agriculture and land stewardship. Maybe that was my way of making peace with how ugly the whole thing got. Maybe it was my way of proving the story didn't end with damage. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's making damn sure something good outlives the people who tried to ruin it. So that's my question for you when somebody uses rules, paperwork, and power to slowly choke out something decent. Where do you think justice really begins? In the courtroom, in the community, or the moment somebody finally says no more? Tell me what you think. And if you've ever dealt with an HOA, a bully, or anybody who mistook your patience for weakness, drop your story in the comments. I want to hear where you're from, what happened, and whether you think Vivian got off easy, or exactly what karma had coming.